In most games, you'll have a main character that you have to control, and that main character usually moves around the screen. So there are different ways that you can make your character move around the screen. The first way that you can make your character move around the screen is just by going left and right. So in this simple example over here, we've got the basics of a Space Invaders style game. So if I click on this, my spaceship down at the bottom, it moves left and it moves right, just using the arrow keys to move left and right. It can't move up and down, just left and right. So if you look, you'll see that we've got this code that we've used for this. So when the right arrow key is pressed, you change the X coordinate by 10. And so what I've done there is I've just used the events, and I've got when space key pressed, and then I've just changed that to when right arrow key pressed, and then I've gone to motion and I've changed that to change X by 10. So you'll see there's one that says change X by 10. There's a block that I can do there. So I could completely get new blocks to move aside for the left arrow key, but I can also right click on the top block and go to duplicate and move that down and change that to when left arrow key pressed, and then what I'll do is I'll change that by -10. Okay, so it will go the other way. So that's the first way that we can look at movement in our game. Now in this example, I want the rocket to move up and down, so I might be making a side-scrolling kind of game where the rocket is facing across the screen. So the first thing that I need to do is make sure I'm clicked on the rocket, and then I can go to direction here, and so it's already rotated 90 degrees from the top, and what I'm going to do is rotate it again, so I can go down here and change that to 180 so that it's in this direction. And what I'm going to do with the code is very similar to what I did last time. I'm going to go across to the events. I'm going to get the when space key pressed again, and then this time what I'm going to do is when the up arrow is pressed, and then I'm going to change that, instead of change X, which will make it move up and down, left and right, sorry, I'm going to go to change Y by 10. So if I change the Y by 10, if I give that a little try, press the up arrow, it goes up. So just like the last one, if I right click and duplicate that, then I can say when the down arrow is pressed, I can change Y by -10, and then that will work. So now I can make this go up and down the page and control it if I'm making a side-scrolling game. So in this game, I want the beetle to move up, down, left and right. So this might be a collecting game where you've got to move around the screen and you've got to go get something. I could use the code blocks that I've already used, but you'll see I've done something slightly different here. So I've got when right arrow key pressed, point in direction 90, move 10 steps. And you'll notice this point in direction 90. So we start from 0 degrees at the top and we go around clockwise, so that's 90 degrees there. And you can actually just change this by putting in 90, 180, 270, 0, but you can actually just drag it and move it around there as well. So that's something slightly different as well. You'll notice though that this beetle, I've changed what's called the rotation style. So if I go up, it points up, if I go down, it points down. And I can change that. If I come back to this button that says direction, what I can do is if I look here, then I've got 3 choices. So at the moment we've got all around. If I change this to the middle one, left and right, so when it goes left and right it faces the way it's going, but when it goes up it's still facing sideways, and when it goes down. So there might be a time in a game where you want something to turn left and turn right, but you don't want them to move up. So if it's a person, you might want them to look left and look right, but you don't actually want them to go up sideways. So let's have another look. The other choice you've got is a fixed position, so do not rotate. So in this case, it doesn't matter if you're going up, down, left, right, you don't turn at all. So you've got those, you can access those by going to direction and you can click on the method that you want in there. Here's a different way of controlling your main character. So you'll see in this example, the character is this boat and it's got to get through the maze. And it's following the mouse. So if I click the green flag, it's going to follow wherever I point the mouse. So we'll just get around this corner and then we'll make it crash, and you'll see it changes costume when it crashes. Bang, there we go. Okay, so I'll turn that off and then let's show you how to write the code for this. So this is the easiest way of making a character follow the mouse. It's not as smooth as the example of the game that I just showed you. So I've got a green flag, so when the game starts, and then I need a forever command because I'm going to keep this going forever, so it's going to follow this rule forever in the game. So I'm going to go to control and get a forever block, and then very simply what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to motion, and then I'm going to go to random position, and I'm going to change that to go to mouse pointer. So you'll see now when I open the game, if I press the green flag and open the game, it's following wherever I move the mouse. So for this game it's not great, it's very easy. There are some games where you might want to actually do this, but for this game it's not great because it's just very, very easy to move around. So we want to smooth the way for the boat to follow the mouse. So I've got my when green flag clicked again. So when the game starts, and I am going to use forever so it keeps following this rule, and what I want it to do is I want it to point towards the mouse pointer. So I've just gone to the movement block and got this point towards mouse pointer, and then I'm going to move it 10 steps. So if you watch this now, so I've turned it off, I'll turn it on again, and it's much smoother the way that it actually follows the mouse. If I stop this, you can change this. So if I change this to move 5 steps or move 3 steps, you'll see that it moves in a different way. So if I do that, it's a lot faster. So you could make the game a little bit harder by doing that. It depends. So you can experiment with those numbers and change the way that the boat moves, but it's still following the mouse. So you can also make objects rotate around. So you'll see in this game, then if I click the green flag on this game, then I've got a spaceship, a very simple spaceship in the middle, and it just rotates. So let's have a look at an example where you might do this in a game. So I've got an asteroid style game here. So if I press play, I can rotate around and I can shoot, hopefully before they get to me. So the code for this game is very simple. So I've gone into the events and I've got a when space key pressed, and I've just changed it to when right arrow key pressed, and I've made sure that that turns clockwise, and I've left that at 15 degrees, which is what it says in the block when you actually get it. And then all I've done is I've duplicated that so it's when left arrow key pressed, but I've swapped this block now for turn anti-clockwise. And people sometimes forget that. They actually just have it turning in the same way and they won't understand why it won't turn in the other direction. So that's quite simple to actually make it turn left and right. One thing that is really important is to make sure that if you're drawing this, it's actually in the centre of the drawing page when you're painting it. So I'll show you what I mean. If I go to the costumes tab and make sure that I am in the bitmap section here, so if I say convert to bitmap, sorry, actually I should be converting to vector, it should be in this one. What I'm looking for is this arrow key, and what I need to make sure is this is in the middle of the screen, and if I move it, you'll see I've got this little black crosshair that pops up in the middle, so it's a circle like a target, and what I want to do is put that right in the middle. That's where it was. If I have it somewhere like this and I try playing the game, it thinks this is the middle of my character. So watch what happens now. So if I turn this character round, it's not behaving in the same way, it's not rotating properly. So if I stop that, what I need to do is make sure I've got this and I move it back so that's in the middle of where my character should move. So if I move my character again, my character spins round in the middle. It's still not absolutely right, so I just need to go back and just move that a little bit more and then see if that works. But you get the idea, so that's what I want, so I'll just stop that. So I need to make sure that it's centered and then it will rotate properly. Now this last version is a bit more complicated. This is a side-scrolling game, so if I press play here, you'll see my rocket will bounce up and down. So the rocket is just going up and down. I'm pressing the space bar to make the rocket move up, but if I don't press anything, it sinks down. So I've got to keep pressing the space bar so that it doesn't go down. And the rocket stays in the same place and the rock comes towards it, and if it touches the rocket, then the game stops. So let's have a look and see how this works. Let's go through this a bit at a time. So to start with, it says when the green flag's click when the game starts. So I've set the score to 0. I'm not really too bothered about the score at the minute. I'm just going to move that out of the way because we're not talking about the score. But I have got a variable called power. So I've set power to 0. So what I did was I went to variables and then I made a new variable and called it power. So the power is how much it's going to move up and down the screen. So I've set the power to 0, and then the other thing I've done is I've used coordinates to make it go to its starting place, which is here. So if I just click this green flag and move it, you'll see it goes there. That's where I want it to go, those coordinates there. So I've just gone to motion there, and then I've gone to go to X, go to Y, and you'll see when I move this rocket, then that changes. Okay, so I've put that there. So the next thing that I've got to do here, I'm just going to move this sound out of the way because that's not important. This is the important bit. I've got repeat until. So keep doing this until it touches the grey colour. So in other words, keep doing this until it touches this asteroid here. Change Y by power. So change Y, so the Y is the coordinate of the height here. So it's going to change the height by whatever the power is. So at the moment the power is nothing, but the power, so change Y by power, and I've got here change power by minus 0.2. So in other words, what that means is the power is going to keep going down and down and down and down and down. So you'll see that I've got this variable displayed here called power. So if I put that back together and I press play, you'll see this number starts to go down, and as it goes down, the rocket will fall down the screen. So it just goes down like that, and then it drops down to the bottom of the screen. Okay, so keep doing this until you touch the colour black, and then that's going to go down. So it's going to go down. So what we want to do is we want to make it bounce back up when we press the space bar. So over here, you'll see that there is some other code, and this code actually says when the space key is pressed, change the power by 5, and then I've got a sound that plays when that happens as well. So let's just move the sound out of the way and concentrate on this. So when the space key is pressed, the power will change by 5. In other words, the power changes, and when the power changes, that changes the Y coordinate. In other words, it moves it up the screen. So again, if I press play, you'll see when I'm pressing the space bar, it goes up. If I press it a lot, it goes higher. If I don't press it at all, it goes lower. And then up at the top of the screen, it's gone right up to the top at the minute, but you can see that's how we make it bounce up and bounce down. So we've got separate videos on side scrollers that look at how the non-playing characters move, the NPCs, but that is how you make your rocket move up and down on a side scrolling game. Here is a way that you can make a simple driving game. So to start with, I've made a background where I've got a green background for the grass, and then I've got the grey for the road. And so the car is going to go around, and every time it hits the road I need it to stop. I need the car to move when I press the space bar, and I need it to go left and right when I use the arrow keys. So what I've done first of all is I've made the car point to the left. Now you could have the car pointing to the right and it could go around this way. I actually want my car to go around clockwise around the track, so I've made it point that way. So that's the first thing. So let's have a look at that code and see how we've done that, and then we can have a look at how we make the car move. Okay, so the code that I've actually used is this first bit of code here, so that this will make sure that when I click the green flag, the car is always going to go back to the starting point here. And so that is under motion, isn't it? And then if I go to X, go to Y there, you'll see that I've got these coordinates here. Now if I move my car, you'll see that these coordinates change every time I move the car. So I can make that go to the place that I want it, and then when I'm happy with those coordinates, I can drag those coordinates to where I want them. So I've already got the coordinates I want. So if I move this somewhere else and I press the green flag to restart the game, my car will go back to the right place. Now I also want to make sure my car is facing the right direction. So for me, I want my car to be facing this way. I want it to go around the track like this. If I just pick it up and drag it, I want it to go around like that. So I've added this code, point in direction -90. So again, this code is just here. It says point in direction 90, and I've changed that to -90. So if I click on this code, you'll see I've changed this to look like that. So normally, to start with, it's like that. By default, it's like that. So it's +90. So it's facing the other way. It would go that way. But I want my car to go around clockwise, so I'm just going to change it that way. It's up to you, whichever way you want it. So that code will make sure my car's facing the way that I want it to face, and it will start from the same place. So if you added another car, then you'd obviously have to change the place it starts from, otherwise it would be right on top of this car if it's the same coordinates. Now that brings us on to being able to turn the car. So if I click the green flag, you'll see that the car will spin round, and I'm pressing the arrow keys to do that. So what I've done here is I've added this code. I've put this in a forever loop, so I've used some repetition, and then we've got some selection inside that says if the left arrow key is pressed, turn 15 degrees. So you'll see I've used the forever block, I've used the if block, which we're familiar with, that's under control, and then the left, if the key pressed block, if you go to sensing and you have a look under sensing, it's got a key space pressed. And what I've done is I've got the if block, and then I've put that in there, and then that will go in there. So that's how I've actually done that. So if the left arrow key is pressed, it's going to go anti-clockwise 15 degrees, and you can change the degrees as well and see what effect that has. And then I've done this again, so I've actually duplicated this piece of code. So if the right arrow key is pressed, then it's going to turn clockwise 15 degrees. So that makes it spin round. So far it spins round, but it won't go anywhere. So what I want to do is I want to make it move, but I want to make it stop if it hits the green. So that's where I've used this code here. So when the space key is pressed, I'm actually using this piece of code that says repeat until. So we're using repetition again, but instead of repeat forever, I'm saying repeat until. So keep doing this until you touch the green. It's going to move 2 steps. So it's going to keep moving 2 steps again and again and again until it touches the colour green. So you only have to press the space bar once to make this happen. So this touching colour green, again, this is in sensing because it's touching something, and you'll see I've got a touching colour block here. So what I've done is I've clicked on it, and at the bottom you'll see you've got a colour dropper, and I've clicked on the colour dropper, and then you move it to the colour that you want, click on the colour that you want, and then this automatically goes to the right colour. So now you'll see that if I click the green flag and I start the game, then I press the space bar once, and then I move. Oops, not very good, keep crashing. So I'm not very good at this game, but if I set off, if I face the right way and then I set off, maybe I'm just going to have to move it off that green a little bit just to give it a head start, and then facing the wrong way, and there we go. So I can move around and I can keep moving unless I hit the green. Oh dear, right? So yeah, I can keep moving around the track. So I need to improve my driving skills, but that's a simple way to get a driving game started.